are moments in animated films that take your breath away. Not just because of the spectacle, the humor, or the action, but because of how unexpectedly real they are. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a vibrant adventure from DreamWorks that caught everyone off guard with one of the most grounded, emotionally raw moments in recent animation history: a panic attack. A panic attack from the legendary, sword-fighting talking cat who was chasing a magic wish. And yet somehow, amid all the fairy tale whimsy, DreamWorks delivers one of the most realistic depictions of anxiety ever shown in mainstream animation. And they do it in the most organic way. The scene takes place in the forest. Puss has always danced with danger and laughed in the face of death. But in this rare moment, he's brought to his knees, literally and figuratively, by an overwhelming sense of helplessness, fear, and isolation. It's a depiction that doesn't just look like a panic attack. It feels like one. As someone who has personally experienced panic attacks, I can tell you that this scene hit with accuracy. It was chilling and incredibly validating all at once. This isn't just good storytelling. This is a moment that bridges fantasy with real-world emotion. So today, I'm breaking down exactly why this scene works so well. From the villain that triggers it, to the nuanced way that Puss's body responds, to the sound, color, and animation choices that capture the inner chaos of anxiety. But first, let's talk about the catalyst. The villain that makes even the fearless Puss in Boots feel afraid to breathe. From the moment he steps onto screen, Death isn't just a villain. He's a force, an entity, something more powerful than any spell or sword. DreamWorks didn't just give us an antagonist. They gave us a symbol. Death isn't here to gloat, to monologue, or to conquer. He's here to collect. And he's not interested in Puss being a legend. He's simply interested in bringing Puss to his end. Death is terrifying not just because of his appearance, though his glowing red eyes and eerie whistle certainly help. But he's terrifying because of what he represents: the inevitable, unstoppable. And unlike the past villains Puss has outwitted before, Death doesn't play any games. What makes Death so scary is how calm he is. There's no need for shouting or elaborate traps. He doesn't need to chase Puss. His presence alone is enough to make him run. For a character like Puss, who has built his entire identity on being brave, bold, and immortal in spirit, this encounter is insane to see. For the first time, his charm doesn't work. His blade doesn't scare the enemy away. His theatrics fall flat. This is his first time in his 9 lives that Puss truly feels powerless. And it's this loss of control, this realization that his time is genuinely running out, sends Puss spiraling into fear. But not in a dramatic, cartoonish kind. In the human kind. The paralyzing kind. This leads us directly into the woods where Puss is no longer a legend, no longer the hero, no longer anything but terrified. And that's where his panic attack begins. As Puss ran into the forest, his breathing becomes irregular. His eyes scan the area frantically. His pupils are dilated and his ears begin to twitch. He starts to hallucinate, thinking that he sees death all around him. He looks like a prey animal. Not the fearless predator that we've come to know. He's running, not towards safety, but away from something so terrifying that he can't even formulate a plan. And that's the thing about panic. It doesn't leave room for logic. It hijacks your body. Your mind becomes a passenger. Once he stops, it's clear that something is seriously wrong. His chest begins to heave with fast, shallow breaths. The animators place a haunting focus on this detail. His breath becomes the loudest sound. He tries to get air, but it's not working. That's the first thing that hits during a panic attack. The terrifying sensation that you can't breathe, that your lungs have turned against you. And Puss clutches his chest in response, just like many people do in real life, because it feels like your heart is going to burst or stop entirely. His eyes begin to dart, not because there's anything to see, but because his mind is searching for danger, desperate for an escape even if none exists. And then he collapses. He falls to his knees, curling into himself, shaking and helpless. But he doesn't roar and he doesn't cry out for help. He just trembles. And that's when it truly becomes hauntingly accurate. Because real panic attacks aren't dramatic in the theatrical sense. They're internal implosions. They're silent screams. And that's what we see here. As the camera closes in on Puss, it feels claustrophobic and tight. The world begins to fade around him. And it seems like everything disappears. And if you ever had a panic attack, you know that exact feeling. What makes this scene even more intense is the sound, or rather the lack of. The loud noise of the forest is stripped away. The birds, the rustling leaves, and even the distant echoes, gone. All that's left is Puss's breath, shaky and desperate. And then the sound of his heartbeat begins to dominate. It's rapid, thunderous, and unrelenting. For people who have experienced anxiety or immense panic, this is strikingly similar. You may recognize the feeling of the brain beginning to filter out everything that isn't directly tied to survival. You hear your pulse in your ears. You hear your breath like it's someone shouting through a tunnel. And any other noise, no matter how soothing or familiar, feels a million miles away. And then there's a faint ringing, like static or something breaking. The sound is subtle, but it's there. It adds to the sense of unreality, like Puss is underwater or detached from the world. And that's the moment Perito enters. His voice is distant and muffled. And it's not like he's far away, it's just that Puss can't process him. He's too deep in his spiral. This is a level of sound design we rarely get in animation, especially in something marketed to a general audience. But Puss in Boots: The Last Wish goes there. And it doesn't just do it for the drama, it goes there for truth. In the rest of the film, the world of Puss is colorful, exaggerated, and vibrant. It pops with magic and light. But during the panic attack, everything dulls. Blues and grays take over. Shadows grow darker. The brightness fades. It feels cold and empty. Like the world is holding its breath. The frame tightens. The camera angles become narrow and uncomfortable. Everything outside of Puss's body blurs. The depth of field collapses. It's a subtle way of showing how the world stops mattering when you're in the middle of a panic attack. When your body feels like a cage. When your body feels like a cage, you don't notice the trees or the sky. You don't hear the birds. You can barely see the person next to you. Motion itself changes. But then comes Puss's lifeline, Perito. What I love about Perito in this moment is that he doesn't speak. He doesn't panic. He doesn't rush to fix anything. He just sits next to Puss quietly and calmly. And he lays his head gently on Puss's chest. This moment between Perito and Puss was very symbolic to an emotional support animal helping their owner during a moment of crisis. It was beautiful representation that made a lot of people feel seen. As Perito lays his head on Puss, everything begins to change. Slowly and steadily, Puss's heartbeat softens and begins to regulate. Even the color starts to return to the world around them. Perito becomes an emotional anchor. He doesn't come in to dismiss Puss's fear. He doesn't try to distract him. He just sits with him. And that, more than anything, is what helps Puss come back to himself. This moment isn't just an accurate portrayal of a panic attack. It's a turning point in Puss's character arc. Until now, Puss has hidden behind his ego. He has dodged fear with confidence. He has lived life like he was invincible. But in this moment, he's broken, shaken, and exposed. And yet, this moment of vulnerability doesn't diminish him. It actually deepens his character. This is where his transformation begins. The moment he stops pretending. The moment he begins to accept that he is afraid, and that's okay. He realizes that life is precious, not because he can cheat death, but because he feels it now. And for Perito, he isn't just comedic relief. He's a symbol of quiet support, emotional safety, and unconditional presence. Without him, Puss might have stayed lost in that forest, not physically, but emotionally. This scene doesn't just represent a panic attack. It represents recovery. The slow, steady beginning of healing. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish could have been just another fun adventure. They could have relied on the flashy fights, funny punchlines, and magical mayhem. And to be fair, this movie has all of those things. But in the middle of all of that, it gives us something raw, honest, and personal. A panic attack. And it's rendered with care, backed by stunning animation and sound, and grounded in emotional truth. This scene doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't ask for sympathy. It simply is. And in doing so, it validates the quiet, overwhelming pain that so many people carry every day. It tells us that even the bravest, boldest, most fearless among us can break down, and that's not weakness. It's humanity. And in a world of fairy tales, that might just be the most magical thing of all.